Hi, I'm Jason Bryant from the Short-Time Wrestling Podcast and founder of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned and operated, and those opinions presented and expressed may not reflect others, the sponsors, patrons, or the parent network. Find more shows about the greatest sport in the world at the Mat Talk Podcast Network at mattalkonline.com.
It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Robie and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Back for another season of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. If you're counting, this is episode 104. I'm Hall of Fame wrestling writer, broadcaster, and announcer Jason Bryant, joined today with Hokie head wrestling coach Tony Robie. As another season is here, practice has started, the schedules are set, the wrestle-offs have been done. Cassell will be rocking this season. Coach Robie, welcome back to your program, sir.
Thanks, Jason. It's good to be back. It's good to be talking to a Hall of Famer. Excited to communicate and get some information out about Hokies wrestling.
We are going into what I believe is the seventh season. I'm not really sure how we count the last two because it was just weird. The COVID years kind of making things difficult in terms of how we're tracking things, how even we're recruiting. We'll talk about that in a little bit and how we're managing the roster and such. But another year, we had a discussion about a week or two ago about the next season of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. You're definitely on board about keeping this up, but we're going to go in a little different direction this year. There's going to be a lot less coach speak, a lot more features and interviews with people in and around the program. But why continue with the program here on the Mat Talk Podcast Network?
I just think it's just a great way for us to connect with our fans. I think the numbers indicate that, when you look at the data, just the feedback that I've gotten from fans and on message boards, and just my conversations with people, they enjoy it. They enjoy hearing about Virginia Tech wrestling, getting an idea of what's going on inside the practice room, inside of the program. And it's an opportunity for them to connect in some way with our program. And this year, more so with some assistant coaches and with some athletes and maybe some RTC athletes. So all of those things are important when it comes to, building our fan base and promoting our program and marketing our program, which is a priority for us here. So I think when you look at it as a whole, we put out a great product. People are interested in the product and they're consuming it. So why wouldn't we continue to do it?
And also, fans, you just also got to realize we still have the email address for questions, whether they be for the staff or they be for the show. That is insidevtwrestling@gmail.com. So throughout the course of the season, you got questions that we can answer for you, or even if we can't answer them, we're still going to address them and say, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for sending your question in. Once again, insidevtwrestling@gmail.com. That may be an on-air thing. It may be an off-air thing, but we are going to be attentive to, again, that contact info is there. Now, moving forward with what is a new normal, I guess, in college wrestling, and Coach Robie, what is the new normal for Virginia Tech wrestling?
I think we're pretty close to being back to where we were previously in terms of just the way that we're operating. One of the things that we've made a point of emphasis of this year is to not let any of the negativity surrounding, everything that's going on outside of Virginia Tech wrestling, and there's a lot of it in this world, affect us. So, our new normal is just business as usual, as much as we can do that, right? And there's still some things that we have to abide to and some rules that we have to follow, but we're not going to let any of that stuff affect our attitude, affect our approach, affect the way that we're going to approach to this season and the opportunity is that we have here at Virginia Tech. So, that's kind of the way we're looking at things. I don't know if that really answers your question exactly, but that's kind of how we went about things here since the start of this school year and the start of this season.
So if that is the new normal with the baseline in terms of, trying to get back to what it was like before, again, with the extra things you have to deal with, what's it feel like to be back to normal?
It's great. It's great. It's great. It was great at our inter squad match. We had, I don't know, 500, 600, 700 people there, whatever it was, which was a really good crowd for an inter squad match. Great to have fans back in Cassell. Great to have face-to-face interaction. All of those things that I think we took for granted before COVID, we're grateful to have back. I think we've seen, even with the guys on the team, and I think they're truly enjoying this academic year, this football season, in the fall, a lot more than they typically would have, and they're not taking things for granted, and they're grateful for the normalcy that we have right now, obviously compared to last year. Last year was a difficult year, and as everybody knows, in a lot of different ways. So for us, we're just going to focus on the positive and really appreciate what we have and the opportunity that we have here to compete this year.
When we look at what has been allowed, we had the extra year. Everybody got a free year last year, and we're seeing it with some of the power programs across the country. Iowa has done the whole thing, and we're all back. This has created a bit of a tightness for programs in terms of scholarship money, because we're at 9.9 when you're fully funded. Things will work differently with equivalency, because this is an equivalency sport. It's not a head count sport. So what are some of the things that you've had to navigate with, a new crop of kids coming in, trying to recruit without actually having kids on campus? I mean, there's a whole different dynamic the last 2 years have brought, and it's created in some cases, maybe, what's it like in Blacksburg in terms of the influx of people coming in versus scholarship money available. And we've had people leave the program for other opportunities because of that. And what's it been like to try to manage that, I guess, that game of Tetris with your personnel?
This year, the scholarships don't count against your 9.9. So, you use the example that there's some schools that have 6 seniors or 7 seniors or whatever it might be coming back this year to compete. Though the scholarship limit goes back to 9.9 next year, but this year it doesn't count against you. So if you were a senior heavy team last year, which we were not, it really benefited you greatly to get this additional year. In my opinion, the additional year should have went to the class the previous year that did lose a year to compete at the NCAA tournament. Those guys it should have went into effect then, in my opinion, but, we don't make those rules. We just follow them. So we're going to do the best we can to try to work within the rules. Obviously, it benefited us with Corbin, and then with Nathan Traxler taking advantage of his additional year in transferring to us. So we're obviously ecstatic to have those guys back in our lineup. But the whole scholarship part of it it'll get interesting next year when you have guys that, if they choose to come back for their 6th year. And again, we don't have a lot of guys that are even juniors on our team right now. We're a really young team, but it'll be interesting moving forward. I mean, Sam Latona feels like he's been here for an eternity, and technically he has 4 more years to wrestle and compete for Virginia Tech. So it's definitely different. It's definitely strange. It's going to require some, just balancing of the books and being creative scholarship wise and trying to figure out how to make it happen. But it's definitely different. It's added another layer to how we go about recruiting and the whole financial part of it with the recruiting process. And like you mentioned, the dead period for a year and a half was challenging. It was definitely challenging, I think, for us. We didn't have a lot of scholarship money available to recruit with anyway, but not having the ability to get kids on campus to Virginia Tech, to Blacksburg, to experience football game day, to experience just the feel of this place, and really what sets it apart from most universities in the country is probably our greatest recruiting tool. So for us not to have that for a year, it was challenging.
To that point about recruiting, I mean, we know that NCAA rules dictate we can't comment on athletes that have committed before they've signed a letter of intent. But Virginia Tech's been pretty active and pretty successful in the early recruiting period here. Or actually, I don't think the recruiting period actually ever stops anymore. I mean, because kids are verbaling everywhere. But with all that in mind, what's been the key to the success here with some of these next classes of recruits that are going to be coming in?
Well, I think for us, like I mentioned, being able to get when the dead period was lifted and then being able to get kids on campus and be able to do home visits and being able to sit down and meet with people face to face as opposed to over a Zoom call or trying to do a campus or a facility tour via Zoom. That for us is really, really important. We feel like when we get people and we get recruits and we get parents to Blacksburg, to Virginia Tech, they get to see this place and feel it and see, what makes it special. That's huge for us. And I think we've seen that early on with this junior class and the commitments we've been able to get. So we're glad things are back to normal on the recruiting front for us.
Now, when we get back to normal with scheduling, you've always had different variations of how you look at the schedule. Doesn't really get too crazy in terms of the spectrum goes, but you stick with building a schedule based on the strengths of your team for that given year. What was the methodology? Let's try that again. What was the methodology, if that's a word? What was the methodology? I might just keep this in just so people can get a laugh at me screwing up. What was the mindset? How about that behind building this year's schedule?
I think it was similar to how it typically is. I mean, one thing I'll say about recruiting, it's never, it's hard to set it up exactly the way you want to do it. You've got to get with other coaches and, you have to fit into what works for them, what works for you. So it's maybe not always ideal. Like, we wrestle Ohio State, and when you're competing against a Big Ten school, that match has to happen almost in November for it to take place. Otherwise, once you get into the second semester and they get into their Big Ten schedule and we get into our ACC schedule, it's really difficult to make those matches happen. So you're sometimes at the mercy of things that are out of your control when putting the schedule together. But one thing that we always do, a couple things that I try to do when I'm putting the schedule together is, number one, I want to try to have a couple of really good home events, home matches against quality opponents for our fans and to try to get a lot of people in the seats. It's tough to do, in this particular year with our ACC schedule, we only get 2 home dual meets. So then you've got to find other teams to come to Blacksburg. The goal would ideally be to get 8 home events a year or home dates a year. But when you only have 2 that the ACC has given you, it's a little bit more of a challenge, especially when you have to typically return the following year to whoever's coming here, if that makes sense. So for us, we've been fortunate to have a relationship with Ohio State and Missouri where we can go to them and then they come to us. And, last year was the COVID year. So, those out of conference matches didn't happen. I appreciate Coach Ryan honoring his commitment to us and coming back to Blacksburg after a year off, when they owed us a date. But that is definitely one thing that we try to do is have good matches in good events and exciting opportunities for our fans to come and watch us compete against good opponents. And hopefully it plays out in an exciting manner. And, it's less to me when I'm putting this together about padding our schedule or trying to go undefeated or whatever it may be. I want to challenge our team, challenge our guys. I want to get good opponents. I want to prepare our guys for the NCAA tournament. And if that means we take some losses during the course of the year in our sport, that's fine, right? It's not college football where one loss kills you. So that's kind of what we're thinking, that combined with the fact that we want to expose our guys a little bit. We want to get weaknesses exposed and we want to be able to work on them, fix them, and be prepared for the NCAA. So we realize that our schedule is pretty tough this year. That we've got some quality opponents out of conference, and it's going to be interesting for sure. We've got to be ready.
Got some quality opponents that you will build to. You talked about Ohio State coming in, but before that, you've got two opens, the Southeast Open up the road in Roanoke, and then the Wolfpack Open down in Raleigh. So opening the year with two opens before you get to the dual meet, which the dual meet will be a back-to-back weigh-in with Ohio State on a Friday, Gardner-Webb on a Saturday. So going into that to set the lineup with those tournaments, is that the mindset there, saying, okay, we still got some lineup spots we got to figure out, and the two opens are working that out?
No, not really. The Southeast Open is, we're wrestling all but one starter in the Southeast Open. And then the Wolfpack Open will just be red shirts and backup guys that are going to compete there. So our starters will not be going to the Wolfpack Open. We're not taking the entire team down there. So we'll wrestle the Southeast Open this Sunday. It's a great opportunity to start the season for our guys where they can get, 3-4 matches, and kind of, not be too crazy in terms of the volume of wrestling on that particular day. Then we get a weekend off for our guys. We're going to be competing against Ohio State. And then we come back, we've got Ohio State, we've got Gardner-Webb, back-to-back weigh-ins and dates. And then we get Thanksgiving off, and then we go out to Missouri and wrestle Missouri and Northern Iowa the same day. So, yeah, we're excited about it. I think our guys are excited to get out and compete against, guys that aren't teammates, that don't wrestle every single day.
For those who are unaware, when you have a back-to-back weigh-in with two separate events, you do get an extra pound for those that are actually competing. So when we look at the benefit of that, what is the benefit for you as a coach for your athletes to get a back-to-back weigh-in during the season?
Well, it obviously simulates what you're going to experience at the NCAA tournament. So I think you gotta go through that. It's kind of like going through the process of the inter squad match. There's a process to getting ready to compete, and getting down the weight changes a lot of things for a lot of guys. It makes things a lot more difficult when you have to start bringing your weight down. So I think just going through that process, I know it's early in the season, I think is going to be beneficial to a lot of guys. And again, it's, to me, we're trying to schedule home dates, and that's just kind of the way it worked out with Gardner-Webb. That was one of the only dates that we could really get them up here to wrestle us. So we rolled with it.
Continuing with the schedule as we get into December, new event that's popped up on the calendar down in Florida. Frank Popolizio and the Journeyman Club. He does a great job. He's done the Northeast duels up there. Well, he's doing this collegiate duels in Florida, and there's some heavy hitters in here. What was the intriguing part for you to go down there and schedule this thing for the Hokies?
Well, again, it's about an opportunity to wrestle quality teams and see those guys early in the season. I mean, we didn't get to do that last year, so we're in a really good pool with Penn State and Arizona State and some other really competitive teams. So you're going to go down there and you're going to get some quality opponents. Those matchups could be pretty exciting from a fan standpoint, from a coach's standpoint, and that's, again, we're trying to wrestle good teams. We're not trying to run from competition. And that was the thought process when we got invited to do the events. We took Vegas off our schedule this year, so we were looking for something that had some teeth to it and was going to be difficult, and it made a lot of sense to do that for us.
January 15th, Moss duel against George Mason, one of the most unique things, not just in Hokie wrestling, but it's a unique format for college wrestling. You've seen it populate a couple other places, but Frank Beasley's going to bring his Patriots in. What do you love about the Moss duel?
It's just different. It's unique. Our fans love it. It's, it just adds to what we do. Anything we can do to add to, the experience for our athletes and for our fans is something worthwhile. And it's been a huge success, like you said. So when you have something that's a huge success, and it's always one of the first questions I get from fans, in the summer and early fall before we release our schedule is, when are we going to wrestle at the Moss Art Center? Who are we going to wrestle against? So, and again, that's another venue that we have to work around their schedule a little bit. So it's somewhat challenging to schedule that. in terms of who we're going to compete against, when it's going to fall on. So we have to be a little bit flexible when scheduling that event and making that thing happen.
Leading into the ACC schedule, now Rock Harrison has been doing a campus tour pretty much throughout the ACC. He was just in Blacksburg. Him and Sean Kenny are on the call for the ACC Friday night duels. Now, this is something that all your conference duels run Friday nights. From a marketing standpoint, to me, this is absolutely brilliant because I sit back in my speakeasy and I've got ACC Network, ESPN crew, Sean Kenny, who also did the call for the UWW World Championships in Oslo, and Rock, who, that NC State duel last year. I mean, Rock Harrison just brought ACC wrestling to the forefront in social media, just him going absolutely bonkers with that finish. And this, to me, is just a slam dunk on how great it is for the marketing and visibility of the sport of wrestling with Friday night duels. What's it mean for you as a coach, and what's the impact for Virginia Tech?
Well, obviously, the opportunity to wrestle on TV and to expand, to reach maybe a demographic that we're not able to reach. And hopefully it'll help us continue to grow wrestling. But we're going to have a lot of Virginia Tech fans tune into those events that maybe aren't wrestling, diehard wrestling fans, perhaps. So I think it allows us an opportunity to reach some people that we typically can't reach, that maybe aren't the diehard fans that are coming to all our events and are traveling, from Richmond or from Northern Virginia or from Virginia Beach to come watch the Hokies wrestle in Cassell. So that's pretty cool. Obviously, the opportunity to be on TV is something that's, really, really important for our sport to continue to grow. And it's an opportunity for our athletes to continue to grow their brand and have an opportunity to show people, what they're all about and what the sport of wrestling is all about. So, and like you said, Friday nights are a great time to do it. So it's really a good opportunity for us to just, put our product out there. I know after that match last year with NC State, I had tons of people reach out to me that watched the match, that were other wrestling coaches, wrestling fans, just Virginia Tech fans that, we're obviously very excited about what happened that night. And it was great for ACC wrestling.
Not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the lineup, at least on this episode, but a couple personnel notes. You had also mentioned earlier the incoming transfer of Nathan Traxler. What's it been like to have him in the room?
Nathan's been fantastic. A lot like Corbin Myers when he transferred in here. He's really fit in very, very well with the team and the culture of the team. Nathan's he's a fantastic kid, very easy to get along with, very, very coachable kid. Hard worker. Was one of the reasons he chose Virginia Tech was the training partners and what we have in our room with some of the bigger guys. So, it's been seamless, really. We've worked to communicate with Nathan in terms of what we feel like is best for him. I think one of the challenges is when someone comes in as that's in their sixth year, part of coaching is getting to know kids and understanding individually how to approach them, how to train them, and what is best for them individually. So with Nathan, with not a lot of time to use here, there's not a lot of trial and error available to us with Nathan. So just trying to communicate with him and talk to him in terms of staying in touch with what we feel like is best with him and allowing him some input in his training is something we've been trying to do for him and to help him, achieve his goals this year. But, he's a tremendously talented guy. Technically, for a heavyweight, he can do some things that not a lot of big guys can do. He's really, last year he competed the beginning part of the year, 97, bumped the heavyweight. So he was not a huge heavyweight. And I think he's been able to stabilize his weight at a weight that's going to be more conducive for him competing against the best guys in the country at a high level. So yeah, it's been really good. We're glad to have Nathan. I think it's going to help Hunter Katka's development and allow Hunter a redshirt year where he can kind of slow down and, improve. And that's really important. Hunter Katka is very diligent with his improvement and what he needs to do and the areas that he needs to get better in. So, having a year where you don't have to be in the fire, I think is a great opportunity to improve for Hunter, to get bigger and stabilize at a weight class, at a weight that is, again, going to help him be one of the best heavyweights in the country, which is what he's trying to do.
Now, again, the big question everybody's going to be asking about is the national champion that's on the roster. His name's Mekhi Lewis, got hurt last year. He'll have 3 more bites of the apple, so to speak. And what's Mekhi's status and what do we expect from him up a weight this year?
Mekhi is 100% healthy right now. He is doing a fantastic job in the room. His work ethic, his focus, his attention to detail right now, all the things that are going to be required for him to have a great year. He's locked in, and I'm really excited to see him compete this year. He's had some incredibly productive practices, workouts. His consistency is awesome. He's the same guy every day. He's looked great. I'm fired up to watch Mekhi wrestle. He's in a really good place right now. So it's all good on the Mekhi Lewis front.
What do you have to be mindful of as a coach when you have such an athlete with such high ability and credentials that's coming back from a major injury?
Well, I think you just have to take your time bringing him back, and we did. Obviously there wasn't a whole lot going on after the season, so he took plenty of time, and it was just an injury. Everybody thinks it was a shoulder. He actually tore his pec muscle. It was an injury that just requires time, and it's just an injury that is really difficult to wrestle with. I mean, it would be easier to wrestle with a torn ligament than it is a torn pec muscle, or a torn muscle. So it was tough. The timing of it was tough. If he had another 3 weeks to a month, he probably would have been, he wouldn't have been 100%. But for him to be able to win 2 matches in the condition he was in, I certainly feel like with some more time, he would have done well and certainly would have placed really high at the NCAA tournament. And who knows, Mekhi's, he's got a competitive spirit that is impressive and what really, separates him from a lot of guys. So, I just think we got to be smart, but he's back. I mean, he did a great job rehabbing it. He's 100%. I mean, it's not, the pec doesn't seem to be an issue at all for him right now.
Probably the most obvious question from Hokie Nation and from yours truly. What are the goals? What are the expectations for 2021-22?
Oh, I think we have a chance to have a great team. I really think that we've got one of the best teams we've ever had this year. That being said, a lot of teams do with the extra year, right? So it's probably going to be, at least in my recollection, probably the most competitive NCAA tournament we've ever had on an individual level, right? So many guys coming back. Instead of having, 4 classes, you have 5 classes competing at this year's tournament. So it definitely raises the degree of difficulty. But I love our guys. And we've got 4 returning All-Americans. I think there's only been one other time that we've had 4 returning All-Americans, and that was 2016 when we took 4th at the NCAAs. And then we also have Bryce Andoni and Nathan Traxler who lost in the round of 12 last year. And a lot of other young guys that were able to get some experience last year and, really have shown improvements in my opinion. So we've got high goals like we always do. I'm not going to get specific to exactly what those are, but we want to win all the time. I can promise you that much. And we hold ourselves to a very high standard, and we want to compete a certain way, and really focus on the effort that it's going to take and the commitment and the discipline and the work. So we're prepared when we step out there to compete, and we represent Virginia Tech. And that's really where our focus is right now, is in the preparation and making sure that we're ready to compete, and we can compete in a way that gives us the best chance to win.
Well, those in the Roanoke Valley, Southwest Virginia region can get your first look at the Hokies this coming weekend. That would be November 7th, in case you're listening to this, afterwards, you've missed it. But November 7th, Krager Center in Salem, the Southeast Open. That's the SERTC Southeast Open 2021. That's where you can check out pretty much everybody that's going to be wearing the maroon this season. Coach Robie, looking forward to another season of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling and another season of, as you say, you want to win all the time. Well, we want to see you win all the time as well.
I appreciate it, Jason. Thanks a bunch. Hokie Nation, we're fired up to see you here soon, November 19th. We've got Ohio State coming in. We're trying to set the all-time attendance record for a home dual meet, which is just over 5,000 fans. So we need everybody to show up. We need everybody to bring a friend or two or three. Be loud and root for your Hokies. We're excited to be back in action this year and at full capacity.
Yeah, Pat Cassell, that one, 7 p.m. November 19th against The Ohio State University. And then following, make a weekend of it, of course, because you can come in, you get the Ohio State duel on Friday, you follow up with Gardner Webb on Saturday. So you get a 2-for-1. So make a weekend out of it, Hokie Nation. Come on in. Ohio State set that attendance record on November 19th. Tony, anything further?
That's all, buddy. It's good to be back and talking to you. I appreciate the time.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts.
But also on your favorite podcatcher of choice through Stitcher, Spotify, Spreaker, and more. Everything you need to know and how to listen at InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.